Hey, what's up, everybody? So I use Audacity to record or edit recorded audio for a podcast, and I've used Audacity for editing audio for something like an ebook. And I think it's really great. And what I want to show you today is just a couple tricks that I use to move relatively fast through Audacity. If you're using Audacity, you should probably use these too. Let's check it out. All right, so I pulled up a quick audio kind of sample of something that I would use for my podcast. Let's see what we have. If I play, can you hear it? There we go. It's the intro to our podcast. And we'll use that as an example of some of the stuff that we do. One of the things that I think is important is I have these really long, hour-long podcasts, and so I was trying to, and it was a problem for a while, I would play it.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'd want it to go faster, and so I saw this thing, and I was like, oh, playback speed, cool, let's crank it up. And I pressed play.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And it wouldn't go any faster. And so what you actually have to do is set the speed and then press play here.
Hi, I'm Sarah. And I'm Tony. And this is Making It in Asheville, a podcast with
And you can get a lot faster through the content itself. One of the keys there is that when I do that, I listen for like show notes primarily, and moving fast doesn't allow you to see all of like the hiccups in the sound, but you can catch stuff and move through a little bit faster for, let's say, note taking. Another thing is if I wanted to zoom in on a section, right? You can use the plus, minus for magnifying lenses, but also like if this is a soundbite that's for whatever reason I want to cut out or I want to edit, you can use these two to kind of jump right into it, and I find that to be really helpful. So you can either see the entire project or jump in specifically to what you're looking at. Again, entire project, the specifically highlighted spot. Both are awesome little cheat codes. Beyond that, right, if I were to say, ooh, I want to cut this entire section out, or I know exactly, let's say that I want to be right here, I'll do Command I and put a bar in it, and that helps me to get this to show up in the next file, kind of the next individual track, and that helps especially when you're starting to look at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tracks in one audio recording. Finding the spot in the track that you're editing, Command I, makes it really easy to match that exact same point in your audio file. Otherwise, what else is cool? You can highlight sections, press delete. That's cool. The key to think about when you press delete, though, is that audio is going to truncate on that track specifically. So if you want to shorten all of the tracks, you got to make sure that you're highlighting across all of the tracks, then pressing delete. Concept, Command Z, I'm undoing it. The concept here is that if you press kind of up and down, once you highlight a section, so I'll do it again, highlight this section, shift down, and I throw that exact same shape down. That'll work on as many tracks as you have. Then the other idea, right, so that's I, that's delete. I'll also, right, if I were to see that there were like, I was talking over Sarah or I coughed or something, I can just highlight a section and hit Command L, and that turns the audio off on that track for that highlighted portion. So again, it's Command L, and you can just silence it. And I think that's most of the keyboard shortcuts I'll do. The other thing is, when there's a bar there, so what this allows you to do is switch to like the grabber tool and slide, right? I've created a kind of separated the tracks by hitting that Command I, and that allows you to just pull sections apart. If you want to remove that bar, you got to go back to this little splicer, and then click on the bar, and it removes. And then when you go back to this tool, it'll move as one unit. That's kind of helpful for when you're making an edit where you need to delete something, but you want to put the audio back together so that you can then move it as one giant bar. Here's an example again. Slid it over, bang, closed it, and we go back to the grabber, and it'll all move together. The other things I'll do is when I dump the audio in, one of the first things I do typically is kind of just test for levels. And then in terms of effects, there's more effects than I know what to do with. But what I'll almost always do is look for high points in the audio. And so an example for this is like, all right, if I look at track 2, this is clearly the loudest segment. So I'll come in and I'll fit to that section, or fit to that section and zoom out so I get a little sense of scale. I'll highlight to keep it real tight, and then I will take the effect button and look at amplify. I don't exactly know the science on all this, but I know that -3 is a pretty simple and small step, and that shrinks down the amplification of the noise in that segment a tiny bit. If I hit Command R, I'm repeating that amplification edit. Command R again, right? And so what I'm doing is looking for high points in audio, and I'll just pull the highest points down so that I can then click. So I click over here to highlight the entire track. There's probably other ways, probably Command A, but I'll highlight the whole track by clicking over here, and then I will hit Effect, and one of the things you can do is normalize. And so you can normalize a entire selected section or an entire track or multiple tracks at a time, but you can normalize an entire track to have a certain peak amplitude. I've heard a bunch of different bits of advice on what the ideal peak amplitude is. I go with -4, and then when you press OK, you should see that all of the audio has kind of increased in its visual representation of the sound file, and what it'll also be is loud.
Down with an Asheville local and
so
artist,
we've turned up effectively the audio on my portion of the tracks.
And in today's episode,
So
we
it's going to be a
talk
little
with
bit
Andrew
quieter.
Nellick.
Mine
He's
were
the founder
averaging up
of
here at that 6. Hers is
Bada
averaging
Bastu
up
is a
right
Nordic
around 12.
bathhouse located in the south.
Cool. So we've talked now about changing the amplify. Same thing as if someone like turns away from the mic, right? So while you can use amplify to lower the sound, right, to pull down on the high points, you can also use amplify to increase it. So in this instance, again, small steps because I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I look for the picture of the wave file, like of the sound. I'll increase it by 3. If I need more, increase it by 3 with Command R. Right, so I take these small steps to affect the sound. And that's it. The last thing I'll say is when I do export, I export as MP3. And the podcast app that I use has a size limit, right, depending on if you're using the free tool or not. And so what I found to have the best kind of bang for your buck on quality of the sound plus small file size is this setup here. So I'll use a variable bit rate. I set it between 95 and 135 kbps, which I don't know exactly what that means. And again, variable speed. I force it all to export in mono so that you hear it the same in both ears. If you're using earplugs, people can listen one ear and sound good. I set this, the title. So this is Audacity demo, save, and then you can name, right? So you can kind of have some presets if you're doing a podcast, make tiny tweaks, press OK, and that's your metadata. So it'll save, and you should be off to the races. All right, so that was how I use Audacity. I'm sure there's a bunch more to the program itself, but so far so good. Our podcast is called Making It in Asheville. You're welcome to give it a listen. There's a bunch of sound things that I've done, but not necessarily recording that well. But I think that the product itself for a kind of a free software that allows you to make the types of edits and adjustments and build quality sound is really fantastic. So if you have any other tips, tricks, advice, tools, techniques, please let us know. I'm sure anyone that watches this would be glad to read your positive and helpful additions to this video. Thank you. See you soon.